So what's up everyone, this is Char talking, welcome back to my channel. In today's video we'll be talking about Romancing Festival ΩT260G banner. This is a special banner with 4 different limited styles, contrary to the past banners that only had 2. Now we have more value just because of this. This character is trying to replace some characters that are used in some specific situations. They are good, but it still depends on if you lack what they offer. We'll start talking about Zozma. Zozma is a hybrid character. Zozma can do physical damage, but also magical damage. This also comes with a problem, because we don't have a short sword with shadow element in the game yet. We'll only get this in the future, like maybe 3 months from now. He has 100% STR and 100% intelligence, and one good thing is that if you compare him to Saruin, a UDX character, they share the same status. Look. 100% STR and 100% intelligence. He was buffed in global, so now his status are well distributed. His endurance and will suffer a little from this. He does receive some more damage than some other characters. His dexterity is kinda low, but we just got the update where it also uses STR for accuracy, and his agility is pretty good because he's also a debuffer. The other status don't matter too much. Well, when looking on his abilities, the first one is called Raging Spirit 2. This one is amazing because it buffs 2 different status when he attacks, and they are STR and Intelligence. Well, this is exactly what he needs. And let's compare this to other characters, like we have Minerva. Minerva is a character that gets 15% at all time, every turn, because it's on the start of a turn. Now, he gets 20% because he needs to attack, but in long fights it's actually good because he can stack, do more damage, and kinda never miss his debuffs. Now the second one is called Soul of Sword. When he is equipped with swords, every time he gets 15% increase in damage, and also reduces all damage that he receives by 10%. This is okay, and he kinda needs since his status are kinda bad. Then he also has High Battle Tension. This gives him 20% increase in damage and plus 1 BP on start. So in the end he has 35% increase in damage on total, recovers BP by 1 on the start of a turn, and also buffs himself for STR intelligence every time he attacks, alongside 10% damage reduction. For skills, we have Mirage Step. This is an amazing skill, and it debuffs all targets by intelligence, and it depends on his intelligence, but his intelligence is good enough, he would not be missing, and every time that he attacks, he just gets higher damage with Mirage Step, higher intelligence to never miss out his debuff. The damage is pretty okay, only E and 9, and well, let's talk about Mirage Step as a whole, because this guy is trying to compete with Asylus, and the reason is just that many people may not have the combination that you need to make a good Asylus. Well, this Asylus here is the one with the highest intelligence, but it's still only 82, and we were using her recently and she was not failing in most fights. And she only has Mirage Step as a counter attack natively, and you need to get the original Mirage Step with this version of Asylus that kind of rerun sometimes, but more for veterans, because, well, still you need 2 units to make a perfect intelligence debuffer with Asylus. And, well, what Zozma does is just bring it all with just 1 character, with very high intelligence. He is now the best Mirage Step user. He'll face competition as well with the next Asylus. The Mystic Asylus can also just use Mirage Step, and she also has higher intelligence, but Zozma just stacking intelligence all the time makes up for even better debuffs. And it's super important, we got many tower stages where we needed to debuff intelligence, and Mirage Step being only 4 BP means that you can spend this a lot. There are other alternatives with 5 BP, with 6 BP, with 8 BP, but not as cheap as Mirage Step. For single target, we do have another option, and that is Genie. Genie has a different version, called it Therapeutic Anima, with Autumn Breeze. She has a 2 BP attack that can debuff intelligence, but look, her intelligence is pretty bad and she would just start missing on recent content. So that's why upgrading your intelligence debuff with Zozma may seem interesting, especially if you don't have both Summer Asylus and the first Asylus to get Mirage Step. Now, the second attack is called Rava Shot. This one is a 7 BP attack, but it's a spell this time. It's E power only, 6 BP. and attacks 3 times with a chance to stun the target. The chance is low, but remember, he gets a very high intelligence by itself, and he will trigger his passive once, so the second and third hit will have higher chances to inflict stun. Because it's only 7 VP, it's actually good to use, and you can use it twice in a row because of high battle tension. But there's only one problem now. Like I was saying, Zozma does not have a particular weapon to use, so you need to wait like 3 months to get a weapon inside the game that's both SS and brings Shadow as an element. Or else you just have to farm a NES weapon with Shadow attribute to just use Rava Shot. The damage will be reduced because of that. If you have a double S weapon, the damage is pretty nice. It also reminds me of another character that has something pretty similar, that is Comando Emilia. Comando Emilia has this attack called Bullet Dance. Look, they are essentially the same, but in the case of Zozma, he also has the stun chance added. His agility is pretty nice, so he really can stun some targets. But the damage will be limited. Maybe if you just want to stun, you will ignore the damage and just use a normal sword. Or just, you know, poke a sword, since that one gives intelligence as well. I think it's kind of a good option for the current Zozman if you want to build him up. It's not the best stun inflictor. We also have another stun inflictor in the game, and that is Shira. And she can debuff and also inflict stun with all of her attacks. The second one, called the Hint of the Night Wind, is an 8 PP stun spell that can hit all targets. And medium chance is just so high, she even has higher intelligence. But they can complement each other since both are shadow damage. Okay, so now the last skill is Blood Rage. This is a physical skill, and 10 BP for triple S damage and 62 modifier. It's actually pretty nice. We get usually 58, 59 modifier with triple S skills, and sometimes they don't have double elements. It also debuffs endurance by large effect. Large effect, it's actually interesting. Recently, many of the bosses from raids have just such a high endurance that you can see your Rufus doing less damage, or some of your other lookers doing less and less damage. Now Zozma can do this just like another character can do. And that is Boston. Lunar New Year Boston also has an attack that can debuff endurance. That is Sky Reverse. And he can use this 2 times in a 3-turn cycle. So you can use on turn 1 and 3. That helps increase the damage on raids. I use it many times in my setups. Zozma will do it only once. And there's only one problem with Zozma as well, it's that he can only use 1 Mirage Step after Blood Rage. He will not have enough VP to use Mirage Step again, because, yeah, he starts with 11, then uses 4. This is not final. Mirage Step will be amplifiable in the future. It will reduce to 3 VP, so he becomes an opener with single target and then keeps using Mirage Step. It's interesting for some builds and some raids where you can decrease the intelligence of the enemy, but remember that most boss fights, they just want to kill you on turn 3. But in challenges, it's still pretty useful. In boss fights, he's the best in the buffer for multiple targets. But yeah, for farming, he does offer some utility, but without the correct weapon, you are kind of limited here. The only other problem about Zozma is he does not have any other style in JP. So he is what you have. He even has good arrows for, you know, the status that he needs. He increases his intelligence faster than his SDR. But all you get about Zozma is this. A good endurance debuffer, a good character for stun, and the best intelligence debuffer for multiple targets to keep constantly debuffing. We have characters like, you know, Evelyn and Rock that are good for quick fights because they can just shot then the spells, do damage, debuff. But if you need to keep constantly debuffing, the better ones are Asylus and Zozma takes the win in this case. So Zozma offers a lot of value for not being just restricted to intelligence debuff. He can do stun, he can do endurance debuff. But there's something that Zozma loses against Summer Asylus, is that she can counter with Mirage Step by use of Phantom Blade. If there are multiple targets that attack with direct attacks, you can just debuff their intelligence to 0 very fast, but that's like when you have 6, 5, 4 targets, so this compensates. But still, besides that, for all other purposes, Zozma is the superior character. He'll be receiving a double S grade, but I must say that you don't need both. If you have Summer Asylus and you don't have many gems, you can just stick to her design and keep using her for the same content where you'll be using Zozma. Although Zozma can also be used for damage, but he's not a prime damage dealer. So in JP, there are more alternatives for AoE intelligence debuff with cheap cost. There's a future SaGa Frontier 1 style here, and there's also this version of Monica that is not so far from Liz. She's coming with UniverSe in a banner with 5 different styles, and they are all good in a way or another. So this Monica is a meta pool. She can debuff intelligence with a strong attack and then with a cheap attack as well. And most people will want to summon on this banner because it has 5 different styles. So if you don't want to summon on this banner because of the intelligence debuff, if you can wait, you can just pull on this other banner instead. Time to talk about ዄ260G. We have 4 different styles. The first one, the A awaiting orders, was limited. And then we have 2 other limited ones, awaiting upgrade and Mission Gala Olympics. They were not so good. Mission Gala Olympics could be used for counter strategies, but the status were pretty bad. We can even compare now. Look, the endurance is higher on 89% now with commencing last mission. We also have way higher dexterity, going from 82 to 110%. Agility goes from 65 to 95. That's also pretty huge. We have 52 intelligence, also higher. Higher will with 81%, love and charisma don't matter. So all status are better now, and it just makes ዄ260G much better than before. You have 1 arrow for dexterity and 2 for agility. That means that you still need this one to get higher dexterity. For passives, we have Detox Heal. We will remove all status ailments on the end of a turn and also recover around 150 HP. Second one is Weak Tension. This one gives her 15% increase in damage and also 10% more when attacking a weak target. Fired Up 5 makes up for 20% more damage. At the end of the day, we have 35% at all times and 45% when hitting a weak target. Now for skills, the first one is Beat Shot, and this skill defines Ł260G because it brings the charge mechanic. It's the first character with charge mechanic in global, and it brings a lot of problems with that as well. First of all, you do A power damage with blunt and heat. All attacks from Ũ260G are based on blunt and heat. Then she recovers plus 3 BP. That means that you get 3 BP by a turn and recover 3. It's essentially free to use. And then she enters an energy charge stance. This is the charge mechanic. And starts a countdown that lasts for 2 counts. On the end of the turn, you already get 1 last count. On the second turn, you will get 1 last count. And then on turn 3, that will reach 0 and she will be able to attack with another attack. That's called Enclosing Bits. Well, it will appear on your screen. It's the only attack that you can use, but you can at least trigger Overdrive to use and get a bigger damage. The Enclosing Bits attack is double S and blunt and heat again, and gives her an evasion stance. That means that she would not get hit or inflicted with status elements in that particular turn. So kind of defensive, right? It will also use the same rank of Beat Shot, so it just increases as the rank goes up. But that brings some problems and questions. On turn 2, you will not be able to act. You cannot even do normal attack, so you are getting less damage. And A power and then double S power is not even that strong. Many characters can do even damage compared to triple S in a row, like Christmas Rupina. She does triple S damage with cross break and then she goes again on the second. Okay, she needs inheritance to perform that, but other characters can do something similar as well. And what we get when you use an A power attack and then later a double S power only? Not much. So the charge mechanic passes on waves, so you're still counting, you're still charging, but the ending result, the nuke attack, is not that powerful. I wish they just had increased the power of Enclosing Bits, making it even 4S damage to guarantee that the nuke will just be good. Or maybe change her passive Detox Heal into something else, so like buffing dexterity so that you could just get stackable dexterity to launch a nuke in a boss fight, but that's not how it works. 3 turn cycle, 4 damage, it's not good enough. That's my opinion on this case. But then everything changes on turn 4. I have to say that she was made for longer fights that last at least 4 turns. First of all, you use Beat Shot. Then you stay with your 7 BP on the end of the turn. Then, on the next turn, you have 10. On turn 3, you already have 13. On turn 4, you have 16 BP, and then you can use Cosmic Rave just after using enclosing bits. Cosmic Rave is a very powerful attack. It needs 12 BP to cast, and it's triple S power and 73 modifier. So it's the highest triple S modifier in the game. The same as Darky, the same as Hannibal, the same as Jen, the same as many other attackers. Like, we can even look on this list. There is Eldora on the top, there is Hannibal, Jen, there is ዄ260G here, and also Darky. So the damage is pretty strong, but the only problem is that you need 4 turns to unleash the potential. On turn 5, you can use Beat Shot again, so she just keeps cycling this infinitely, or until she dies. Now we need to talk about more problems with this. The problem is that if you get inflicted with Stun, Charm, Paralyze, Petrify, or Confusion, she will stop the charge mechanic, and you have to use Beat Shot again. It's okay because you just can use it all the time since the coast is actually free, but you would not be able to use enclosing bits. So if your boss has many status elements, you should not even try to bring ŨT260G to not interfere and end up losing the best damage potential. Also, because it's 4 turns to unleash this, it still works on raids. Remember that in raids, there are usually 3 turns to do damage, and then on the end of the turn 3, the raid boss will use a special AoE attack that will most of the time kill all your characters. And that 3rd turn, you'll be evading. She does not get any damage. So turn 4, she will still be able to unleash Cosmic Rave. And because she has such a high agility, she will always attack before boss kills you. So this brings something nice, but at some price and with a chance of failure if you get inflicted with status ailments. So you can also just play for Cosmic Rave, like you can just wait every 4 turns to use Cosmic Rave. It also works, but you cannot use this on turn 1. I wish we could, it will make her so much better in some different situations at least, as a turn 1 nuker. Sadly, she does not work like that. Then we also have another attack called Starlight Shower. This is an AoE attack with 8 PP coast only. The damage is pretty good for the coast. It's blunt and heat again. B power 23 modifier. So you can use this on turn 1 and turn 3, or turn 2 and turn 3. She also works super well with characters like Fuse that have a fast attack that can be used on turn 2, so she goes first and then on the 3rd turn. Sometimes these 3 characters will be enough to finish a stage and you can bring 3 trainees and that will work well. Also, gun users have very good damage output because of how their damage formula works. But there's also some competition against a recent character that still has a banner available, that is Orlouge. Orlouge has blunt and heat as well, with his attack called Rock Smash. It's not as powerful, but it's costing only 6 BP instead of 8. And Orlouge has very good damage on turn 1 because of Raiding Horror. The damage will be a little different. ŨT260G still wins, but Rock Smash can be used 3 times in a row when you have events with 3 waves. So depending on the situations, one will be better than another. But Orlouge also has a very powerful turn 1 nuke that brings slash and heat. So they compete, but not all the time. But you don't really need both. You see, you just don't need to summon for all styles. Well, as for inheritance, we have a style with Proton Rocket that's not good now, but in the future will be amplifiable for triple S damage. Yeah, it's a row attack with triple S damage, but it's pretty far from release. Now there is other inheritance being Mud Spread, 3 BP AoE attack that can be used after the AoE Starlight Shower, and the last one being Pop Knight from the Gata Olympics style, because it's 8 power 20H blunt and pierce. Because we do have very high agility, you can use it on turn 2 after finishing the first wave with the fast attacker. So back to ዄ260G, I don't see it being so useful right now in the game. As for my final comments, sadly, ɁT260G is not a meta character. It's even pretty hard to use on full potential. Most events in this game are always based on 2 or 3 turns. So to get 4 turns, it will be against raid bosses, normal bosses, and very special challenges, and that won't happen much often. You are left with Cosmic Rave for 2 wave clears, so that she goes for the second wave, maybe against the boss, or to use Starlight Shower for farming, together with another nuker. So in the end, I think she only deserves an S grade because of being so hard to use on max potential. Sadly, you will not be missing too much if you skip ₦T260G. Next one is Orlouge. We have 3 different versions of Orlouge. The first one was given out for free during the event, it's limited, returns from time to time. Then on the top we have UDX Orlouge, Lord of Chateau. Then this one is a limited one, called I've No Use for the Week. Even being an UDX, the current one beats the UDX in everything save for endurance. We have higher endurance with the UDX because it is actually a counter mechanic character that relies on being hit by direct attacks. But we have way higher agility now, higher intelligence, higher will, similar love and charisma. There's one problem here, we don't have arrows for intelligence, so we need the UDX one to get higher caps. The S style does not even have it. Okay, so I do think these status are well distributed. The first passive is called Recurring Region Intelligence. So every time that you attack, it will recover HP by around 150 and also buff intelligence by 15%. This is a pretty nice passive, used for boss fights a lot. Then the second one, Inhibitor 3. This one will debuff 10% of agility and will. And this one is kind of a waste. Well, this Orlouge is now best buddy of Death Albert strategies because, well, we use it Volcano, we use it Stun Yunzin, and they debuff 5% will off targets. Now we have double the value without having to bring 2 characters. So Orlouge will help out when you are farming with Albert and you need extra help. But in boss fights, you're just debuffing 10% and after that the effects just wear off and you have nothing left. The last one is High Battle Tension and gives him 20% increase in damage and 1 more BP on start. So only 1 damage passive, only 20%. He needs to attack to buff, so when farming his damage is not as good as many other mage damage dealers. Then we have the first skill being Absorb. Absorb is a 3 BP spell that has shadow and cold damage, so pretty nice. Deep power is not so high, only 10 modifier, but it recovers HP. Because he already recovers with Recurring Region, you'll be recovering for close to 900. Very similar to what we can do with Global X Claudia, but Claudia does that for Pierce, and she also has a 3 BP attack that does similarly. Look on this, it even has lower mod. Only 1 damage type as well. The second spell is Purple Flames, a 5 BP spell that has shadow and heat damage, deep power 11 modifier, it's not that high, but has a chance to inflict stun. Because of such a high intelligence, it will be inflicting stun unless the enemy has resistance. We do have some competition with Shira. Shira has an AoE stun spell with C power, very powerful, double element as well. It's fast, so it will always stun before the enemy's attack. It's pretty nice and can be used well in Hidden Dojo, for example. There's another competition, that one is Ray. Ray has a 6 BP spell that also stuns. So, none of them can use 3 times in a row, but Orlouge can. He's the only one that can do 3 AoE stuns in a row in the game right now. So, can be used in some scenarios, depending on if you have plenty of enemies and they are also susceptible to stun, he will help. He debuffs will, so he gets a higher chance right from start to debuff and inflict stun. Now, the third attack is Minstrel's Ice Prison. This one is a single target spell, double S power 55. Well, to be honest, this should have cost only 8 BP instead of 10, but that is because it has a medium chance to inflict Petrify. We don't have many Petrify inflictors, but because this is only single target, well, it's pretty similar to what Ray offers from her S style Cockatrice. This has a much lower damage, but 9 BP. And Petrify lasts for 5 turns, and you can land Petrify again. You have enough BP. It's also similar to what we have with AV, but AV is superior in my opinion, because he can inflict Petrify with only 5 BP, and it's high chance instead of medium, and he can just keep trying to Petrify with easier chance, but his intelligence is not so high, so that's where Orlouge wins. But still, there are not many occasions where you want single target Petrify. If you want Petrify, you will try to use someone with AoE. That is Thomas. Thomas can do it with this style, or you can inherit. Petra Delta can be amplifiable, and that it's a good damage. And there's also Taria, another style that does AoE Petrify. This is something that you will need in Ward Tower, while single target Petrification is more niche. It's pretty rare to have a usage for this. So his nuke is kind of limited because they added the Petrify chance, and he will not be a very good character to be used on farming, unless you have a usage for stun or you need a double element of shadow and heat. Now for inheritance, he gets plenty of different effects, and he's like one of the best characters to use on Ward Tower. First of all, we have Shadow Chains, 2 BP to have a high chance to paralyze a target. And because he already comes debuffing Will and even Agility, he will just try to inflict Paralyze right from the start, and every time that he attacks he gets an Intelligence buff, meaning that just gets higher and higher chance to paralyze the next targets. Another thing is Ultrasonic Wave. It doesn't have a high damage, but it has 7 BP cost only and can confuse all enemies. This is just so good, and it's something that you can also find on Saruin. Saruin has the same spell, and I use Saruin a lot in Ward Tower, and if you don't have Saruin, now you have a chance to have Ultrasonic Wave, and you can use it twice in a row, just like this character, because he starts with 11. Remember, Orlouge has high battle tension. And the last one here we have is Energy Storm. This one is not good, it's just pure shadow damage. Now, for the UDX style, we have this attack called Trimming Stress that has a low chance to inflict sleep. But it's a turn 2 spell, it will not be easy to use. The other ones are not so powerful or interesting to be used with this one, since this one is more focused on trying to inflict any status elements right from the start because of Inhibitor 3. But like I said, this kind of reduces his damage potential for long fights, but if you stack too much intelligence buff, it can compensate and he can still be used here and there. It's just that he does not have a real nuke to use. But at least if you are missing on shadow and cold damage, he will help you. Orlouge, by inheritance, becomes a good character for some scenarios, like I said, Ward Tower, and that's why he'll be receiving a double S grade. But if you have characters like Saruin, like Taria, like Ray, you really don't need Orlouge. You can already cover for everything that he offers, so he just brings more utility into a single character than just add something new to the table. The last character is Time Lord. Time Lord has very high agility and intelligence, 103% intelligence and 99% agility. He's a spellcaster from the shadow element, and he needs to control time. That's why he's focusing on those 2 status. His endurance and will are a little above average, but that's everything that we can say about him. Now for passives, we have the first one being Haste. So at the start of a round, this is made for farming, so every round you have this triggering again. It will increase all surviving allies action order by 25%. But what is an action order? It is the status that determines who goes first or not. It changes based on the type of attack that you use it, and can be increased or decreased. Time Lord is the only character that can increase this value, and it's just like Amazon Raid X front row buff. Now you can just give this to everyone in the party, and it will help you attack before being attacked. So in challenges like, Zui Coliseum, when we get higher stages, this may help if the enemies have very high agility, but it's not something that you should care too much in normal farming. But still allows you to attack before the enemy. Now, the second one is called Time Dilatation. On the start of our turn, he has 25% chance to get an evasion stance. This is pretty used for boss fights. Strength, first one is for farming, second one is for boss fights. He also reduces a random enemy agility by 10%. It's good for boss fights, but 10% debuff to agility barely makes any difference, guys. It's more about the evasion stance. Then the last one is Overtension, giving him 15% increase in damage at all times, 30 on combo and 45 on overdrive. So the only damage passive is Overtension, and you see, for farming he does not have so much damage. Now for spells we have the Delay Order, a shadow spell that's actually just support, does not do damage, and debuffs agility by up to 20% for a single target. Well, because it does not do damage, it cannot be used on auto. You need to manually input this command. And if you already have plenty of agility buffers, I have to tell you that this does not make much difference. It's only if you really need to overkill to debuff agility right from the start. Now, the second one is called Time Flow. It's a 6 BP spell that it's a single target damage, indirect, 8 power and 29 modifier. So nothing special for the damage, but at least it buffs his agility by 30%. So his agility is pretty high. He's a character that can just enter evasion very fast if you are using with strategies with Bune and, I don't know, Princess White Rose and another buffer. He can debuff the agility from the enemy and just buff his agility in other turns. But 6 BP is kind of too much, right? Then the last attack is Chaos Stream. This is an indirect attack, 10 BP, B power, 25 modifier. It's not so powerful. There are 8 power attacks with similar cost, but he can instant kill targets with low chance. Well, this is actually pretty good. In tower, there are plenty of enemies that can be instant killable. And if you miss it out on UDX Death 2.0, you now have a character that can do something similar. See, this death can instant kill with 10 BP too. It even has a little higher modifier with 27. On 28, it's already 8 power, so when we compare them, a little behind. So Time Lord is strange, because he can open with an AoE instant kill attack, and then he waits 2 turns to use a single target spell. Time Lord needs his future style to be really relevant, in my opinion. We'll have to give a look on this on JP. Okay, so this is his future style, having very high agility, will probably even higher when we get higher intelligence, but it will be even higher as well. So, what we have for skills, it's a 3 BP AoE spell. So this one also gives an action order correction, so everyone will attack faster, and it lasts for 3 turns. Very nice, and it's also pretty unique. Now we'll be able to start with Chaos String and just keep using Clockwave. Then it just increases the action order of everyone, helping out when farming. Yes. Then there is Time Erosion. This one has a 25 modifier. It's inferior to Time Flow, but it can inflict Petrify. It's similar to what we saw with AV, and also debuffs the agility. So 2 effects, 15% decrease to agility and a chance to inflict Petrify. Then he gets a new AoE opener, but this one is pretty different, and it gives an extra correction order to himself only, so he becomes extremely fast to just go first, maybe to help out when trying to petrify some specific enemies, but I don't understand why he needed to have this just for himself. It's not for everyone. Well, right now, as he is, he's a little limited. I don't believe that we need this haste passive for normal standard farming. He's a good character for auto if you want to just build up in evade, like in raids when we can evade. He'll work well. And if you need to instant kill enemies in tower, Chaos Strings work well. But besides this, he's a little restricted for something else. I will be giving him a low SS grade. He does offer some utility, but still a little limited and will feel incomplete for many people. Now back to the banner image. Is its banner worth summoning for? In my opinion, it kinda depends. Well, if you need Mirage Step because you don't have Summer Ocelus and the Mirage Step inheritance, Zozma makes up for a lot of value since you need some good intelligence debuffers for hard challenges, because Mirage Step's the only one that's cheap in AoE. ዄ260G is interesting but broken. It's pretty hard to reach max potential. Orlouge is only very useful if you have his S style at least, and if you lack Ray and other status inflictors. While Time Lord is pretty unique, but it's still kinda hard to use and unnecessary, to be honest. So I will say that this banner has average value because of what characters offers here, but if they offer something that you lack, the value then increases. So I'll still be giving a silver award because it's still 4 limited styles that can fill up some roles for some people that are missing out. I will not be summoning for them on release because I want to see what's the next banner. But I'm a huge fan of SaGa Frontier 1, so I don't know, maybe I'll end up summoning. Thanks so much for watching this video. Please subscribe if you haven't. Say here in the comment section if you want to summon for this character or not. And I hope to see you soon in the next video. Bye.